Welcome back. The heat in Oak Valley hits differently just after sunrise. Like it's already warning you the day won't be gentle. The asphalt still holds on to the dreams of the night before, cracked and stubborn under the weight of a new morning. Cicadas buzz like tension in the background, and the air smells like dust, diesel, and cheap cafeteria pizza. Middle school kids shuffle through the gates of Oak Valley Intermediate, weighed down by backpacks and invisible burdens. But one girl walks slower than the rest. Her name is Amamira Benson, and at 12 years old, she's mastered the art of disappearing in plain sight. Hoodie up, eyes down, sketchbook clutched to her chest like a shield. The world doesn't see her, and that's exactly how she survived. What most people don't know, what no one at this school knows, is that Amira's father just became the new sheriff in town. Not the kind who poses for photo ops or waves at parades. Marcus Benson's the kind who cleaned up precincts in Oakland and left a trail of crooked cops and sealed indictments behind him. But Amira doesn't want to be that girl. She just wants to get through 7th grade without becoming a target. Too bad Oak Valley Intermediate runs on a different kind of law, one ruled by whispers, reputations, and the cruel currency of popularity. And at the top of that food chain sits Jackson Holt, the kind of kid who weaponizes charm with a grin and can destroy someone's social life before homeroom. He doesn't know who Amira is. Not really. But he's about to find out. Because when cruelty crosses the wrong line and the quiet girl finally looks up, things don't just change, they erupt. Picture this: a phone camera, a stolen sketchbook, a hallway that turns silent, and a town about to learn that justice doesn't always knock. It walks in wearing a badge. Stick around. This one's going to hit hard. The morning bell shrieked through the courtyard like a warning flare, but Amamira Benson barely flinched. She moved through the halls of Oak Valley Intermediate like a shadow in motion, intentional, careful, invisible. Her sketchbook hugged tightly to her side, worn leather edges brushing against her hip with every step. Students flowed past in chaotic streams, laughing, shouting, filming TikToks, but she slipped between them like smoke. Her eyes scanned the floor, never the faces. Not because she was shy, but because she knew better. The school had its own gravitational pull, and orbiting too close to the wrong crowd could pull you into a black hole. Amira had learned that lesson early. Being one of the few black girls in a sea of sun-bleached cliques meant she didn't get to blend in. So instead, she faded out. No trouble, no attention, no room for mistakes. Her father, Marcus Benson, had taught her that, though not in so many words. He was the new sheriff now, sworn in just last week, and already his name carried weight. People turned their heads when he walked into town hall. They stopped whispering when he walked into a room. But Amira, she didn't want that kind of power. Not here. Not in the middle of pre-algebra and overpriced vending machine snacks. She just wanted to draw, keep her head down, and survive. But Oak Valley Intermediate had its own king, and he didn't like things he couldn't define. Jackson Holt strolled into homeroom like it was his private stage, his laugh loud enough to make people turn, his charm weaponized with precision. Blonde, athletic, born into the kind of money that came with its own local influence, Jackson didn't need to try. He owned the attention. Teachers adored him, classmates orbited him, and Amira, she was invisible to him until she wasn't. It started with a glance, just a flicker in his eye when he noticed her ignoring him. Then came the questions, disguised as jokes. What's she always drawing? Thinks she's spying for the sheriff? The laughter was soft at first, but it spread like wildfire. Amira felt the shift before it even fully happened. Her heart beat faster when she saw Jackson's group walking her way. She told herself it meant nothing. She was overreacting. But a voice deep in her gut said otherwise. Something was building, something cold, sharp, and closing in. And all she could do was brace for the first blow. It started like any other lunch. Fluorescent lights humming overhead, the low roar of voices bouncing off beige tile and linoleum floors, the sharp scent of nacho cheese and chlorine from the gym drifting through the vents. But Amamira Benson felt it in her bones. Something was different. She sat at the edge of the cafeteria, sketchbook open but untouched, pen idle in her hand. Her instincts whispered warnings. Across the room, Jackson Holt lounged with his crew, all smug grins and oversized personalities. Then, as if on cue, he stood. The cafeteria seemed to tilt. His steps were slow, casual, too casual. His phone was already out, camera rolling. "Let's see what Oak Valley's little detective is working on," he said loud enough for half the room to turn. Amira froze. She knew better, knew the rules. Stay quiet, stay small, don't make waves. But her sketchbook, her world, was sitting in plain sight. Before she could move, Jackson snatched it off the table. Laughter erupted behind him. He flipped through the pages, eyebrows arched in mock fascination. "Oh, wow," he said. "Look at this. Chains? Superheroes? What's the message, Benson? That you're locked up in your little sheriff house?" A sharp stab of heat flushed Amira's cheeks. She stood, voice caught somewhere between breath and panic. "Give it back," Jackson grinned. "Say please." Her jaw clenched. Behind him, someone recorded. Another whispered, "This is gonna blow up." He held the sketchbook high like a trophy, then tore a page out. The page, her best piece. The room quieted. She stepped forward, desperation bleeding through her calm. "I said give it back." "Why?" he snapped. "Afraid your daddy's gonna come arrest me?" The word daddy stung. Not sheriff, not chief, just daddy. Like her worth was a family badge. He crumpled the page and tossed it into a half-full tray of mashed potatoes. The slap of it hitting wet food echoed louder than the laughter that followed. Amira stood still, eyes locked on the mess. Her fists curled. Her chest heaved. But she didn't move. Not yet. Something inside her said, "Don't. Not here. Not now." The room buzzed with energy, hungry for a meltdown, a reaction, anything. Jackson leaned in closer. "You're nothing without that sketchbook, and definitely nothing without your daddy." Amira blinked. For a split second, she wasn't sure if he was right. The weekend passed in a blur, but not the comforting kind. It was the kind that leaves static behind your eyes and dread curled tight in your stomach. Amira barely left her room. She told herself she was just tired, skipped Saturday's usual sketching at the cafe, ignored the texts from her cousin, even let her father's gentle knocks go unanswered. But the truth clung to her like smoke. She'd lost control, and something worse was coming. When Monday arrived, it wasn't the usual morning nerves that greeted her. It was silence. The kind that doesn't belong in a school hallway, that hits just after a storm and right before the next. As she walked toward her locker, her sneakers squeaked louder than normal, like the building itself was listening. Students didn't laugh. They didn't whisper. They watched. Eyes flicked up from phones, then darted away. Others didn't even pretend to hide it. Some held up their screens openly, as if waiting for a reaction. Her stomach dropped. Something had shifted. Something had spread. She quickened her pace, heart thudding against her ribs like a warning drum. At her locker, a girl from science class, someone who usually didn't even glance her way, smirked and said, "Guess the sheriff's daughter can't handle a joke, huh?" Amira blinked. "What?" But the girl was already gone. Inside homeroom, the truth hit like a slap. Lena Carmichael, a satellite in Jackson's orbit, leaned over from the next row and dropped her phone on Amira's desk. "You're kind of famous now." The screen showed a photo, her photo, edited, twisted, her face mid-shout, her hand raised in motion. A still from Friday's standoff, pulled from someone's phone, now frozen in time to paint her as something else. Words scrawled across the image in bold red font. "Psycho sheriff's kid goes off." Her breath caught. Comments stacked beneath the post like stones. "Anger issues much? No wonder she's always alone. Bet she scratched him after this." Her fingers trembled. Every line of art she had ever drawn felt suddenly meaningless. She shoved the phone away and stared at the desk. Every scratch, every chip, every stain. They grounded her more than the people around her. She wasn't angry. She was humiliated, misunderstood, alone. But then, in the quiet spiral of her thoughts, a voice surfaced. Not Jackson's, not Lena's, her father's. "Don't let them tell your story before you do." For the first time, she wondered if staying silent had been the real mistake. When Amira stepped through the front door that afternoon, The house felt off, too still, too quiet, like the air had paused, waiting for something to break. She closed the door softly behind her, hoping to slip upstairs unnoticed, but her father was already standing in the living room. Uniform shirt untucked, badge glinting on the coffee table beside his phone. His arms were crossed, and in his hand, the screen glowed. One image, one headline, her image. That photo, the edited one, her face contorted mid-expression, warped by cruel timing and red text that screamed "Psycho Sheriff's Kid," filled the room with its silent accusation. "Amira," he said, voice steady, too steady. Her backpack slid from her shoulder and thumped onto the hardwood floor. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her father turned the phone so she could see it, again, and let the silence grow heavy between them. She looked away, shame burning across her skin like sun against raw nerves. "I didn't do anything," she whispered. "I know," he replied, his eyes locked on hers. "But I also know exactly who did." The shift happened in real time. His jaw tightened. His fingers tapped the screen once. A number dialed. A voice answered. "Principal Rollins," he said calmly. "We need to talk." Amira's stomach twisted. She had spent all weekend trying to contain this wildfire, to keep it from reaching her father's world. But now it was too late. The ember had landed in the wrong place, and her father was the storm. 30 minutes later, the sheriff's cruiser rolled into the school parking lot. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the sidewalk as they walked into the front office. Principal Rollins stood waiting, arms folded, lips tight, but he didn't speak first. "My daughter was harassed," her father began, voice cool and sharp. "Cyberbullying, public shaming, defamation. That image is circulating across half the student body. It ends now." Rollins cleared his throat. "We're aware of some rumors, but these are children, Sheriff. We have to treat it delicately." "No," he said, stepping closer. "You have to treat it seriously." The office door creaked open. In walked Jackson Holt and his parents, Richard and Danielle Holt, draped in designer confidence. Mr. Holt smiled like a man used to winning courtrooms. "Sheriff Benson," he said, "surely we can all agree this has gotten a little out of hand." Her father didn't blink. "You're right, it has." He turned to the principal. "What's the school's response?" Principal Rollins hesitated. Then, "Jackson is suspended. Effective immediately." The room froze. Mrs. Holt gasped. Mr. Holt's smile cracked. Jackson, standing silent for once, looked suddenly small. Amira watched it all, heart pounding, breath shallow, as the power shifted. Not with shouting, not with fists, but with truth. And for the first time, the silence belonged to someone else. Jackson Holt didn't show up the next day, or the day after that. Rumors spread like wildfire, whispered between lockers and over half-eaten lunches. His dad's suing the school. They're moving him to a private academy. His mom flipped out on the school board. But Amira didn't care about the noise, not anymore. She walked the halls of Oak Valley with her head a little higher, her footsteps more certain. It wasn't victory she felt, just quiet. A silence that no longer came from fear, but from peace. Yet even peace had its weight. The photo disappeared from social media. Principal Rollins made a public announcement in the auditorium. Dry, rehearsed, but clear. Zero tolerance for bullying, online or otherwise. It was the kind of message that would have sounded hollow a week ago. Now it echoed. Students listened. And though they didn't line up to apologize, something changed. The snickers faded. The looks softened. People stepped out of her way, not because she was the sheriff's daughter, but because they saw her now, for real. At lunch, Amira sat alone. She always had, but this time, it didn't feel lonely. It felt like hers. Then, without a word, Lena Carmichael slid into the seat across from her, tray clinking softly on the table. Amira tensed. She expected another fake smile, another backhanded comment, but Lena just stared at her food, pushed a grape with her fork and said, "He had it coming." Amira didn't answer. "I didn't think it'd get like that," Lena added, quieter now. "I just thought it was a joke." Amira's eyes stayed fixed on her tray. "You laughed." "I know." A beat passed. The cafeteria buzzed on. Lena looked up, voice almost a whisper. "I'm sorry." Amira stood, gripping her tray. Not in anger, not in triumph. Just done. "Saying sorry doesn't undo it," she said. "I know," Lena murmured. But before Amira walked away, she paused, looked back. "You didn't post the photo. That counts for something." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. Growth didn't come with applause. It came with hard choices and quiet steps. That night at the kitchen table, her father poured himself a cup of coffee, the steam curling upward like a ghost. "How's school?" Amira shrugged. "Better." He raised an eyebrow. "Just better?" She smirked. "Better than last week." He nodded slowly, then leaned back in his chair. "You know, I'm proud of you." "For what?" "I didn't do anything." He set his mug down. "You stood your ground. That's not nothing." She stared at the grain of the table. "I shouldn't have had to." "No," he said softly. "You shouldn't have." They sat in silence, but it was different now. Solid, not strained. And somewhere deep inside, Amira understood. Redemption wasn't just for the ones who got caught. It was for the ones who refused to stay broken. By Monday, Jackson Holt was a ghost. His locker stood untouched, its name tag peeled halfway off, like the school itself had started erasing him. The whispers about where he went, boarding school in Vermont, some elite place out of state, didn't matter much to Amira Benson. He was gone, and the space he once filled had collapsed like a dying star. But the gravity he left behind lingered, reshaping the school in subtle ways. The photo that had once plastered her face with the label "Psycho Sheriff's Kid" was nowhere to be found. Every account that shared it had deleted it, but the memory, the sting, that stayed. Not as a wound, but as a reminder. That week, something shifted. When Amira raised her hand in class, teachers actually called on her. When she walked the halls, people moved over, not out of fear, but out of recognition. Not everyone understood what had happened. Not everyone agreed with how it played out, but they had seen it, and they couldn't unsee it. At lunch, she no longer sat alone. It wasn't a dramatic parade of students asking to join her table, but it was a start. A girl from history class sat down one day and simply said, "Hey." No explanation, just quiet solidarity. A day later, a shy boy from English class slipped her a doodle he made, her face as a superhero, cape flowing, arms crossed like she'd just conquered a mountain. Amira smiled for the first time in what felt like forever. Real, not forced. She didn't need to be the sheriff's daughter to earn respect. She had earned it the hard way, by standing up when her knees shook, by staying silent until the silence hurt more than speaking up, and by pushing back against the weight of being overlooked. And then came the moment no one saw coming. The school district posted a short clip from the auditorium's anti-bullying assembly. It showed Principal Rollins acknowledging what happened, then stepping aside as Amira walked to the podium. She didn't speak for long, just read one line from her sketchbook. "Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones no one sees until you win them." That 30-second clip went viral. Within hours, students across the state were reposting it with captions like, "Real strength looks like this," and "Respect the quiet ones." Even adults began chiming in, resharing the moment with hashtags like #Amira Benson and #Stand Up Silent No More. The girl who once tried to disappear had become a symbol, not of perfection, not of power, but of resilience. But what stayed with people wasn't the virality, it was the message. In a world that often rewards the loudest voices and the flashiest comebacks, Amira reminded everyone that dignity doesn't require an audience. That silence isn't weakness until you let it protect injustice. That bullies win when we let them write the story alone. And most importantly, that sometimes the biggest change comes not from yelling louder, but from standing taller. So if this story hit you, if you've ever felt unseen, unheard, or underestimated, know this: your story matters. Don't let anyone write your ending for you. And if you believe in stories like this, stories that challenge the way we think, feel, and see each other, hit that like button and subscribe to the X Daily Stories channel. We're bringing you cinematic, true-to-life tales every day about justice, courage, and the quiet heroes all around us. Turn on notifications so you never miss a twist, a triumph, or a truth worth hearing. Because sometimes the smallest voice holds the biggest story. And here at X Daily Stories, we're listening.